Hey, Drew.
It always brings the refreshment, and I've been drinking it a long time.
Pepsi or Coke? This is a question soda drinkers are inevitably asked. Pepsi Cola was invented in 1893 and has been Coca Cola's chief competitor ever since. The soft drink has become a worldwide brand in its own right, but there are probably some mysteries you've yet to unfold. Here are 10 things you didn't know about Pepsi. There's accounting for taste.
How is it, honey?
It's amazing.
Over the years, there have been several dozen varieties of the soft drink released in the United States alone. The number of Pepsi varieties grows considerably when you include those released in the European, Latin American, and Asian markets. Everything from Pepsi Free, a caffeine-free drink, to Pepsi Vanilla and Pepsi Blue has been offered to the public. Some have been successes and some have not. In 2016, Pepsi Cola released 1893 Original Cola, a callback to the original Pepsi formula sold in soda fountains at the end of the 19th century. 1893 featured cola nuts, real sugar, and sparkling water. Pepsi ice cream was sold in Russia and supposedly tasted like cream soda. Europe was also offered Pepsi Raw, a soda made with all natural ingredients and no artificial colors. About 24 Pepsi varieties have been released in Japan alone. Japanese Pepsi flavors include Pepsi Ice Cucumber, Pepsi Salty Watermelon, and Pepsi Azuki, made with the Azuki bean. Whether you like straight Pepsi, Pepsi with extra caffeine, or an exotic flavor made with coffee, there is a Pepsi flavor for you.
Another!
Pepsiman.
Everyone was in love with him.
Japan has developed its own popular culture that sometimes seems like a slightly oddball version of American popular culture. A case in point is the Japanese Pepsi mascot known as Pepsiman. The soda superhero began appearing in Japanese television commercials in 1993. 12 different commercials were aired with Pepsiman wearing different costumes that represented the Pepsi Cola can at the time. The commercials put Pepsiman in different situations where he would come to the rescue, providing refreshments to thirsty people in need of assistance. Although he was portrayed as a super being with incredible speed and agility, he also could be clumsy after he successfully delivered soda. There was also a Pepsi woman who wore a yellow ski mask. She was created to represent Pepsi Twist, a lemon-flavored cola. In 1996, Sega AM2 released a video game, Fighting Vipers, that featured Pepsiman as a featured character.
Do you mind if we finish the game?
KID released a video game for PlayStation in 1999 called Pepsiman. Maybe it isn't odd that PepsiCo Japan has official superhero mascots. Maybe the odd thing is that sodas in America don't have official superhero mascots. Take 2 Pepsi. Long ago, there were travelers who sold magical cures for all manner of ailments in a bottle containing dubious ingredients. These were called snake oil salesmen. Soft drinks developed in drugstore soda fountains a century ago were sometimes touted as medicinal products. Caleb Bradham, the man who created Pepsi, was a pharmacist who also ran a soda fountain. He intended his drink to help his customers with their indigestion. The name Pepsi was taken from the Greek word for digestion, dyspepsia. There might be something to this because a 2013 study showed that drinking cola can indeed help break down stomach blockages. The corrosive effects of cola that can damage tooth enamel can actually help with digestion. So Mr. Bradham wasn't just selling snake oil when he used the slogan, "Exhilarating, invigorating, aids digestion." As the popularity of Pepsi grew, however, Mr. Bradham decided to focus on the soda's taste instead of its supposed medicinal properties. One word: plastics. Plastic bottles are so ubiquitous, it's hard to imagine soda without them. But there was a time when glass bottles ruled the soda pop world. In 1967, The Graduate foreshadowed the importance of plastic when it was suggested to Dustin Hoffman's character that he pay attention to it.
There's a great future in plastics.
3 years later, in 1970, PepsiCo launched the 2-liter plastic bottle of soda, and the rest is history. Pepsi tasked the DuPont company to make the plastic bottles, and the company received a patent in 1973 for its work. A 1978 PepsiCo television commercial depicting a harried housewife driving home with a carload of Pepsi highlighted the 2-liter plastic bottles' attributes. They were lighter and stronger than regular glass bottles. The original design consisted of 2 separate pieces of plastic. This design was eventually abandoned because the 2 parts were difficult to recycle. The original bottle was replaced by a design made from a single piece of molded plastic. The recycled plastic has been used in the manufacturing of carpeting, boat hulls, and mattresses. A 2-liter soda bottle is 12.9 inches high and 4.1 inches in diameter. But some people in the soda industry didn't think this was big enough. So in 1985, a giant 3-liter bottle was introduced to a thirstier public. Flying high. Skywriting is a fairly common form of advertising near beaches and other big outdoor public gatherings, but this wasn't always the case. Pepsi had the foresight to pioneer this exciting form of advertising at the 1939 World's Fair held in New York. A pilot was hired to write in giant letters, "Drink Pepsi Cola," to the amazement of New Yorkers. This unique form of advertising proved so popular that PepsiCo formed its own skywriting team to promote its soda. 14 planes flew around the United States, delighting skywatchers with letters as big as a mile long, encouraging them to drink Pepsi. By the 1940s, the skywriting team was creating more than 2,000 signs a year in the skies. Unfortunately, the emergence of television advertising rendered skywriting less relevant by the early 1950s. However, in the 1970s, the company's 75th anniversary prompted the return of skywriting. As recent as 2017, PepsiCo was still sending planes into the wild blue yonder to entice thirsty people.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Super soda. Pepsi Cola had sponsored the Super Bowl halftime show before, but in 2012, the soda company signed a multi-year deal that would put Pepsi front and center at the biggest sports entertainment event of the year. The National Football League's championship game, the Super Bowl, would be a wonderful catch for any company. Pepsi's contract coincided with a larger effort by the soft drink company called Live for Now that was designed to reinvigorate its relationship with the music world and make it a centerpiece of its marketing campaign. One of the highlights of Pepsi's Super Bowl marketing push was Lady Gaga's 2017 halftime show in Miami. Another example of this renewed push to rekindle its ties with the music world was a Pepsi can with the silhouette of the late pop star Michael Jackson, who had a legendary relationship with the soft drink company. Between 1990 and 2019, PepsiCo aired a total of 53 commercials during these Super Bowl broadcasts. This aggressive marketing campaign was a conscious attempt to associate the brand with the entertainment and music industry. This strategy was meant to convince soda drinkers that choosing Pepsi over Coke was choosing hip and fresh over the more staid competition. Pepsi versus Coke. Odds are good you've probably heard the phrase the Pepsi Challenge at some point. Pepsi Cola started this long-running marketing gimmick in 1975 to draw attention to the soft drink company's supposed superiority over its bitter rival, Coca Cola. The original taste tests were set up in malls by marketing representatives from Pepsi. People were invited to drink from a pair of unmarked white cups, one with Pepsi and one with Coca Cola. After the volunteers tasted the sodas, the Pepsi representative would reveal which brand they preferred. Unsurprisingly, Pepsi Cola revealed that Americans preferred Pepsi over its chief competitor, Coca Cola. An author named Malcolm Gladwell offered criticism of the Pepsi Challenge in his book, Blink: The Power of Thinking Without Thinking. Mr. Gladwell argued that the sip test used by Pepsi naturally favored the sweeter soda when volunteers are only allowed to take one sip.
Sweeter, bolder, better.
These same people may actually prefer a less sweet soda than the challenge seemed to indicate. Some scientific testing was done that compared Pepsi and Coke and did find a measurable difference in how they tasted. To this day, Pepsi Cola is a popular choice for soda drinkers, even if the company still has to contend with Coca Cola. Comrade Pepsi.
we're in Russia.
There is a black and white photograph taken in Moscow in 1959 that shows the Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev taking a sip of Pepsi Cola from a paper cup, as the American Vice President Richard Nixon looks on. As the story goes, the communist dictator liked the sweet beverage, and PepsiCo saw the photo op as a great marketing coup. In 1972, Nixon was president, and his influence helped the soft drink company secure a deal to sell its cola in the Soviet Union. The deal involved Pepsi exchanging its cola syrup for vodka. A plant to produce the soda was opened in the USSR in 1974, but it didn't start to distribute the beverage on a big scale until 1979. With this deal in place, Pepsi Cola became the first American product made, marketed, and sold in the communist state. The Cold War between the West and the Soviets was one thing, but this historic deal was seen as an important victory in the raging soda war between PepsiCo and its number one threat, Coca Cola. It does seem a little strange that as the two countries point nuclear-armed missiles at each other that could have devastated the planet, they found common ground with something as seemingly unimportant as soda. On the other hand, it's a reminder that even communists get thirsty and want to enjoy a crisp, refreshing Pepsi once in a while. If you can't beat 'em, join 'em. It might be hard to believe, but Pepsi Cola offered to sell to rival Coca Cola not once, but 3 times.
It's not real.
This strange string of events began in 1922 with the first offer from Pepsi to sell to Coca Cola. PepsiCo had been betting on the price of sugar, which had skyrocketed during World War I, but this changed when the conflict ended. Pepsi's financial problems grew worse, prompting their initial offer to Coke in 1922. The people at the Coca-Cola Company likely knew about Pepsi's financial woes and decided the offer was a bad risk. PepsiCo was forced to file bankruptcy in 1923. Many of the company's assets were sold off. The soft drink company's trademark was sold to a man named Roy Megarel, but he couldn't get the funding he needed, so he sold it to Loft Inc.
Sold!
Pepsi seemed like a good fit for Loft, which owned retail stores with soda fountains. Loft wanted to replace Coca-Cola with Pepsi after a dispute with the rival soda company. The Pepsi brand's troubles continued, and the ailing soft drink was offered up 2 more times. Coke declined these offers as well. If the owners of Coca-Cola had known that Pepsi would grow to be a global threat to its soft drink empire, they would have probably made a different choice.
Please do not make us the enemy today.
Pepsi Brad. Caleb Bradham was a pharmacist who owned a drugstore with a soda fountain in New Bern, North Carolina. In 1893, he came up with a carbonated beverage flavored with cola nuts, lemon oil, and nutmeg that he hoped would help with some of his customers' digestive problems. However, Brad's drink, as he originally called his creation, was not destined to sit anywhere near the medicine cabinet. Bradham renamed the soda fountain drink Pepsi Cola in 1898. By 1903, the popularity of Pepsi had grown to the point that the production of the soda was moved out of the drugstore and into a nearby warehouse. In 1904, Bradham started selling his soda in 6-ounce bottles and sold almost 20,000 gallons of the drink. Delicious and healthful became Pepsi's advertising slogan in 1909 and held up for 20 years. However, by 1923, the company was struggling financially. Salvation for Pepsi came during the economic upheaval of the Great Depression in the 1930s. The soft drink company started selling its soda in 12-ounce bottles that were cheaper than its competitors, so it started to gain popularity. By the 1980s, Pepsi had worked to associate its brand with the music and movie industries to lure young customers. For example, Pepsi Free is mentioned in a funny scene in the 1985 hit Back to the Future.
Give me a Pepsi Free.
PepsiCo is still running strong today, selling a wide variety of soft drinks around the world. Tap that screen for another great video, and to all our subscribers, thanks, and be sure to ring that notification bell.